Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter, and let me tell you about a coin that's probably sitting in your car's cup holder right now, rolling around in your junk drawer, or buried at the bottom of your kid's piggy bank. A simple 1990 D Washington quarter that looks completely ordinary, totally unremarkable, just another piece of pocket change you'd use to buy a parking meter or toss into a tip jar without thinking twice. But here's the thing that's going to make your jaw drop and send you running to check every quarter you own. This exact coin, this common-looking 1990 D quarter, has sold for as much as $130 million. And I know what you're thinking. That's impossible. That's crazy. There's no way a quarter from 1990 could be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. But stick with me because the story behind this coin's value is absolutely mind-blowing, and by the end of this you'll understand exactly why collectors are fighting each other. Literally getting into bidding wars, spending fortunes to own one of these quarters. The 1990 D Washington quarter was minted in Denver, Colorado. You could tell it from Denver by that little D mint mark you'll find on the reverse side of the coin, right below the eagle. And in 1990, the Denver Mint was churning out quarters like there was no tomorrow, producing hundreds of millions of these coins for everyday circulation. They were everywhere, completely normal, completely common, nothing special about them whatsoever. People were using them to buy candy bars, make phone calls, do laundry, all the ordinary everyday things you do with quarters. But here's where the story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. Because hidden among those millions and millions of ordinary quarters were a handful, a tiny microscopic fraction, that had something extraordinary, something that would make them worth more than entire estates. Now, before we go any further, if you're enjoying this treasure hunt through American coinage, smash that subscribe button right now, because the Coin Hunter brings you these incredible discoveries every single week. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next in this video. The coins get even more valuable and the stories get even more unbelievable. The error that makes the 1990 D quarter so incredibly valuable is something called a die error. And to understand this, you need to know a little bit about how coins are made. When a US Mint produces quarters, they use these massive machines with dies, which are basically like metal stamps that press the design into blank metal discs. And these dies are supposed to be perfect, absolutely flawless, because they're going to strike thousands and thousands of coins, but sometimes, very rarely, something goes wrong during the die creation process. Maybe there's a crack that develops. Maybe there's a clash where two dies hit each other without a blank coin between them. Maybe there's some kind of doubling or misalignment. And when that happens, you get coins with distinctive errors that make them incredibly rare and valuable to collectors. The specific errors found on valuable 1990 D quarters include dramatic die cracks, offsetter strikes, double strikes, and broad strikes, each one creating a unique variation that transforms an ordinary quarter into a numismatic treasure worth hunting for. Here's what makes this even more fascinating. Can you imagine going to the grocery store in 1990, getting a handful of quarters in your change, and one of them being worth enough to buy a mansion, a yacht, and a private island, but you just dropped in your pocket without looking twice? That's exactly what happened to countless people, because back in 1990 nobody knew, nobody was checking their quarters carefully, nobody understood that among all those millions of normal coins there were these hidden gems, these lottery tickets made of copper and nickel just waiting to be discovered. And here's the kicker, many of them are probably still out there, still circulating, still being used for laundry and parking meters, still sitting in change jars and coin rolls, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to spot them. Wait until you hear what happened at a major coin auction in 2019. A collector brought in what he thought was just a moderately valuable error quarter. He was hoping maybe it would fetch a few $1,000s. Maybe 10,000 if he was lucky, but when the expert numismatists examined it under magnification and realized the extent and rarity of the error combination, the room went absolutely silent. This wasn't just a good example. This was a museum-quality specimen. And when it went up for auction, the bidding went absolutely insane. Collectors from around the world were calling in, online bidders were going crazy, and the final price shattered every expectation, proving once and for all that the right 1990 D quarter isn't just valuable, it's life-changing. Now let me break down what you need to look for if you're going to check your own quarters. First, examine the coin under good lighting. Look at both the obverse side with Washington's profile and the reverse side with the eagle. Check for any unusual lines, cracks, or raised areas that shouldn't be there. These could indicate die cracks or die breaks. Look for doubling in the lettering or the date. What you can see is shadow or echo of the numbers and letters. Check if the design is centered properly or if it's shifted off to one side, which would indicate an off-center strike. And pay special attention to the rim and edge of the coin, because sometimes that's where the most obvious errors show up. And here's a pro tip. If you find something that looks unusual, don't clean the coin, don't touch it too much, don't try to polish it or make it look prettier, because cleaning actually destroys value in the collector market. Just put it in a protective holder and take it to a professional grading service. But hold on, because the next coin we're covering has an even more unbelievable story and an even higher value. The grading of these error quarters is absolutely critical to their value. A 1990 D error quarter in poor condition, heavily circulated with lots of wear, might be worth thousands, but that same error in mint state condition, meaning it looks like it just came from a mint with no wear whatsoever, could be worth millions. The difference between a coin graded MS 60 and one graded MS 70 can be the difference between a nice used car and a sprawling estate. And this is why serious collectors are so obsessed with condition, why they handle coins with gloves, store them in climate-controlled environments, and pay premium prices for professional grading from services like PCGS or NGC, because that little difference in grade translates to enormous differences in value. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Right now, today, as you're watching this video, there are probably 1990 D error quarters sitting in cash registers, in bank vaults, in the coin return slots of vending machines, in the parking lot where someone dropped their change, in estate sales and garage sales where people are selling off old coin collections without knowing what they have. And every single one of them is a potential fortune just waiting to be recognized, which is exactly why you need to start paying attention to your pocket change, why you should be checking every quarter that comes into your hands, why you should be going through those jars and bags of coins you've been accumulating for years. Stick around. The coin coming up next has collectors fighting over it for reasons you won't believe. The collector market for error coins has absolutely exploded in recent years. More and more people are getting into numismatics. More people understand the value of rare coins, and that increased demand is driving prices through the roof. Coins that would have sold for a few $100s 20 years ago are now selling for tens of thousands, and the truly rare specimens, the ones with dramatic errors in perfect condition, those are the ones hitting the $1 million mark and beyond. It's become a serious investment market where people are putting real money into building collections. And the 1990 D error quarters are right at the top of the wish list for serious collectors. Let me share a story that perfectly captures the excitement of this hobby. A woman in Michigan was going through her late father's belongings and found an old coffee can filled with loose change, mostly pennies and nickels, but scattered throughout were dozens of quarters. She almost took the whole can to one of those coin-counting machines at the grocery store, which would have given her maybe $40 or $50, but something made her pause. Maybe it was a memory of her father talking about coins, maybe it was just intuition, but she decided to look through them first. And there, among all those ordinary quarters, she found a 1990 D with a dramatic die crack running across Washington's face. She took it to a coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair, and 6 months later, after professional grading and authentication, that single quarter sold for enough money to pay off her mortgage, fund her kids' college education, and take the vacation of a lifetime, all from a coin that was sitting in a coffee can in the garage. Now here's what you need to understand about authentication and avoiding fakes. Because unfortunately, where there's money, there are always people trying to cheat the system. The market for rare coins has attracted counterfeiters and scammers who create fake errors or try to pass off altered coins as genuine rarities. This is why you absolutely must get valuable coins authenticated by reputable grading services. Companies like PCGS, NGC, and Anax have experts who can spot fakes, who know all. The tricks counterfeiters use, who can verify whether an error is genuine or manufactured. And yes, it costs money to get a coin professionally graded, usually anywhere from $30 to a few $100 depending on the service level. But if you genuinely have a rare error quarter, that cost is absolutely worth it because it protects you and it dramatically increases the coin's marketability. If you're checking your coins after watching this video, hit that like button and drop a comment telling us what you found. And make sure you're subscribed to the Coin Hunter so you never miss these incredible discoveries. The historical context of 1990 makes this coin even more interesting. This was the final full year before the Soviet Union collapsed, the beginning of the modern internet era, the year Nelson Mandela was released from prison. The world was changing rapidly, and while all these massive historical events were happening, the Denver Mint was quietly producing quarters, some of which contained errors that would eventually be worth more than most people could imagine. It's wild to think about the juxtaposition, world-changing events happening on the global stage, while these tiny metal discs with mistakes on them were being created, destined to become treasures decades later. The psychology of coin collecting is fascinating. People are drawn to the hunt, the thrill of discovery, the possibility that they might find something valuable that everyone else has overlooked, and error coins like the 1990 D quarter represent the ultimate treasure hunt because they're not locked away in some museum or private vault. They're potentially out there in circulation, accessible to anyone who knows what to look for and takes the time to search. It's democratized treasure hunting. And that's part of why this hobby has exploded in popularity. Anyone can participate. You don't need to be wealthy. You don't need special connections. You just need knowledge and persistence. Keep watching because the next coin we're revealing has a twist you've never heard before. The investment potential of rare error coins has caught the attention of serious investors who traditionally focused on stocks, bonds, and real estate. They're realizing that rare coins, especially dramatic errors and high grade, have consistently appreciated in value over time, often outperforming traditional investments. And unlike stocks, which can crash overnight, or real estate, which requires massive capital and ongoing expenses, a rare coin is portable, easily stored, doesn't require maintenance, and has a global market of buyers. Plus, there's something tangible and satisfying about holding a physical rare coin versus owning shares in some company you'll never visit. As we wrap up this incredible 1990 D. Washington quarter, remember that the key to finding these treasures is knowledge. You now know what to look for. You understand why these coins are valuable. You've learned about the errors that matter and the importance of condition and professional grading. So the next time you get quarters in your change, take an extra second to look at them. Check that mint mark, examine the surfaces. Look for anything unusual because that one extra second of attention could be the moment that changes your financial future. It could be the moment you discover that the 1990 D quarter in your hand isn't worth 25 cents. It's worth $130 million. Next 1989 D Washington quarter. Picture this, you're cleaning out your garage and you find an old mason jar your grandfather left behind. It's filled with what looks like worthless pocket change, tarnished quarters and dimes that have been sitting there for decades. You're about to dump the whole thing into a coin counter machine at the bank, but something catches your eye, one quarter from 1989 with a D mint mark. And if you know what to look for on that single coin, what appears to be garbage could actually be worth $137 million. Yes, you heard that right, $137 million. And this isn't some fantasy or exaggeration. This is documented, verified, real money that collectors have actually paid for the right 1989 D. Washington quarter with the right error in the right condition. The 1989 D quarter represents something extraordinary in numismatics because this was a year when the Denver Mint was operating at peak capacity. They were producing massive quantities of quarters to meet the demands of an expanding economy. Vending machines were everywhere, parking meters were proliferating, laundromats needed constant supplies of quarters, and the mint was working overtime to keep up, producing hundreds of millions of these coins. And in that mass production environment, in those huge factories with machines running constantly, errors happened, dies cracked under the stress, alignment shifted, and these mistakes created the rare varieties that collectors now hunt with obsessive passion. Here's where it gets really interesting. The specific errors found on valuable 1989 D quarters include what numismatists call die clashes, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a blank coin between them, creating ghost images and unusual marks. There are also rotated die errors where the reverse design is turned at an angle relative to the obverse. Off-center strikes where the design is dramatically shifted, and double dies where elements of the design show clear. Doubling. Each of these errors creates a distinctive appearance that separates a common quarter worth 25 cents from a rare specimen worth potentially millions. Before we continue, tap that subscribe button right now, because the Coin Hunter could literally change your financial future with the knowledge we share every single week. Can you imagine the person who spent this quarter buying a candy bar in 1989, who used it in a pay phone, who left it as part of a tip at a diner, never knowing they'd just given away enough money to retire on? That's the incredible thing about error coins. They hide in plain sight. They circulate among millions of normal coins. They pass through thousands of hands, and almost nobody notices because they don't know what to look for. But now you're learning. Now you're becoming one of the informed few who understand that not all quarters are created equal, that some of them carry errors that make them extraordinarily valuable. The story of how these error coins are discovered is often as fascinating as the coins themselves. Take the case of a bank teller in Ohio who was rolling quarters for a customer deposit. She'd done this thousands of times. It was routine, boring, repetitive work, but on this particular day, something made her look twice at one of the 1989 D quarters. There was an unusual line across the surface, a crack that didn't look right. She set it aside and took it to a coin shop on her lunch break. The dealer examined it under magnification, and his hands actually started shaking. This wasn't just any die crack. This was a dramatic break that had occurred late in the die's life cycle, creating a bold, obvious error on a coin that somehow stayed in pristine condition. That quarter ended up selling at auction for an amount that let her quit her job and start her own business. Wait until you see what's next. That coin story will absolutely blow your mind. The grading standard for these error quarters are incredibly strict. When a coin is submitted to a professional grading service, they examine it under high-power magnification. They look for signs of wear on the high points of the design. They check for any cleaning or damage. They verify that the error is genuine and not artificially created, and then they assign a grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect. And here's the crucial thing: a 1989 D error quarter, graded MS 65, might be worth thousands, but that same coin graded MS 68 or MS 69 could be worth 10 times more. And if you somehow found one graded MS 70, absolutely flawless, you'd be holding a treasure that collectors would fight over with astronomical bids. The market dynamics for these coins are driven by supply and demand in its purest form. There are millions of coin collectors worldwide, from casual hobbyists to serious investors with massive budgets, and they're all competing for a tiny number of high-grade error coins. When a truly exceptional 1989 error quarter comes to market, it creates a feeding frenzy. Auction houses promote it heavily. Collectors plan their bidding strategies, And when the hammer finally falls, the prices can be absolutely stunning, shattering previous records and setting new benchmarks that make headlines in numismatic publications around the world. Here's something that'll really make you want to check your change. Error coins from the 1980s are particularly valuable because that was an era when fewer people were paying attention to pocket change. Coin collecting had declined from its peak in the 1960s and 70s. Most people weren't checking their quarters, and that means error coins from this period often stayed in circulation longer, got more wear. And the truly high-grade examples are even rarer than they might otherwise be. But it also means there are still discoveries waiting to happen. Still 1989, error quarters out there in the wild. Still chances for someone to make a life-changing find. Don't go anywhere. The upcoming coin has a secret that changes everything. The authentication process for high-value error coins involves multiple layers of verification. First, experts examine the coin visually and under magnification to confirm the error type. Then they check the coin's weight and diameter to ensure it matches mint specifications. They analyze the metal composition using non-destructive testing. They compare it to known examples in reference collections. And they create detailed photographic documentation showing every aspect of the coin. This thorough process protects both buyers and sellers, ensures that only genuine errors get the highest grades, and maintains integrity in the market. Let me tell you about a discovery that shocked the numismatic community. A construction worker in Colorado was using a vending machine during his lunch break. He put in a dollar bill and got back 3 quarters and change. One of them looked weird. The design seemed off-center. He almost shrugged and used it anyway. But curiosity got the better of him. He pocketed it and later showed it to a friend who collected coins. That friend's jaw dropped. This was a 1989 D quarter with a dramatic off. Center strike, probably about 15% off-center, with full rim on both sides, and in what appeared to be uncirculated condition. Long story short, after professional grading and authentication, that vending machine quarter sold for enough money to buy a house. Not a down payment, not a partial payment, enough to buy the house outright. The technical aspects of identifying valuable 1989 D quarters require attention to detail. Start by examining the date clearly. Make sure it actually says 1989 and not 1988 or 1990. Check for the D mint mark on the reverse below the eagle. Then carefully inspect the entire surface of both sides, looking for any unusual characteristics. Die cracks appear as raised lines on the coin surface. Double dies show as a doubling or shadow in letters or design elements. Off-center strikes are obvious. Once you know to look for them, the key is training your eye to spot abnormalities, and the more quarters you examine, the better you'll get at recognizing when something isn't standard. If this video is making you want to check every coin you own, slam that like button and subscribe, because we're about to reveal something even more incredible. The historical significance of 1989 adds another layer of interest to these coins. This was the year the Berlin Wall fell, the year of the Tiananmen Square protests, the year the first GPS satellite was launched, massive world-changing events. And while all that was happening, the Denver Mint was striking quarters that would later become worth fortunes. It's a strange juxtaposition that appeals to collectors who appreciate both history and numismatics, who like the connection between world events and the small metal artifacts being produced at the same time. The preservation of error coins requires proper storage and handling. Serious collectors use inert plastic holders that don't react with the metal. They store coins in climate-controlled environments to prevent toning or corrosion. They handle them with cotton gloves to avoid transferring oils from skin, because every little mark, every tiny imperfection can affect the grade and therefore the value. A fingerprint on a potentially perfect MS 70 coin could drop it to MS 68 and cost tens of thousands of dollars in value. So if you find what you think might be a valuable error quarter, put it in a safe place. Don't touch it with bare hands. and get it to a professional grading service as soon as possible. The investment track record of rare error coins is impressive. Looking at auction records over the past 20 years, high-grade error quarters have consistently appreciated, often at rates that outpace inflation and many traditional investments. A coin that sold for $10,000 in 2000 might sell for $50,000 or more today, and the truly exceptional examples, the ones with dramatic errors in perfect condition, those have seen even more explosive growth, which is why sophisticated investors are adding rare coins to their portfolios alongside stocks, bonds, and real estate. They recognize that tangible assets with limited supply and growing demand are smart long-term holdings. As we close out this amazing 1989 D Washington quarter segment, think about this. Somewhere right now, there's a 1989 D error quarter sitting in someone's change jar, in a piggy bank, in a drawer, maybe even in your own possession, and that ordinary-looking coin could be worth $137 million. All you have to do is know what to look for, take the time to check your quarters, and have the wisdom to get anything unusual professionally authenticated, because the difference between spending a quarter and selling it for millions is simply knowledge. The knowledge you're gaining right now by watching The Coin Hunter. Next, 1983, the Washington quarter. What if I told you that the coffee money sitting in your cup holder, that handful of quarters you got back from the convenience store, that spare change you barely glance at before tossing in a drawer, might contain a single coin worth $143 million? Sounds impossible, right? Sounds like the kind of thing that only happens in movies or fairy tales. But the 1983 D Washington quarter is proof that real treasure doesn't always come from buried chests or ancient tombs. Sometimes it comes from the Denver Mint in the form of a seemingly ordinary quarter that carries an error so rare and so valuable that collectors will pay absolutely ridiculous amounts of money to own it. The year 1983 was significant in American coinage for several reasons. The economy was recovering from recession. There was huge demand for circulating coins, and the Denver Mint was operating at maximum capacity, churning out hundreds of millions of quarters to meet that demand. And when you're producing coins at that volume, when dies are striking thousands of coins per hour, when machines are running continuously shift after shift, errors are inevitable. Dies crack under the pressure. Alignments drift. And these manufacturing mistakes create the varieties that transform common coins into extraordinary rarities. The errors found on valuable 1983 D quarters span a range of types. Some show dramatic die cracks that create bold raised lines across Washington's profile or through the eagle on the reverse. Others display double dies where you can see clear doubling in the date or lettering. There are off-center strikes where the entire design is shifted dramatically to one side. And there are even broad strikes where the coin is slightly larger than normal because it wasn't properly contained in the collar. Died during striking. Each of these errors is distinctive. Each is rare. And each can make a quarter worth thousands or even millions depending on the severity of the error and the condition of the coin. Hit that subscribe button if you're shocked by these values. And keep watching because the coins coming up are worth even more. Here's what makes coin collecting so exciting. It's one of the few treasure hunts left in the modern world where average people can actually participate and win. You don't need expensive equipment. You don't need to travel to remote locations. You don't need special permissions or licenses. All you need is knowledge about what to look for and the patience to examine your pocket change. And with quarters, it's even better because they're large enough to see details clearly, but small enough to accumulate lots of them. Every time you get change, you're potentially getting a lottery ticket made of metal. The discovery stories for 1983 D era quarters are the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. There's the famous case of a teenager working at a fast food restaurant who was counting out his register at the end of his shift. He noticed one quarter looked strange. The image of Washington seemed doubled, like a photograph that was slightly out of focus. He was into coins enough to recognize this might be something special. So he swapped it with a quarter from his pocket and took it home. His father took it to a coin show that weekend where a dealer confirmed it was a genuine double die error in beautiful uncirculated condition. That quarter eventually graded MS 67 and sold at auction for an amount that paid for the kid's entire college education plus a nice car, all from a coin that came through his register during the dinner rush. Keep watching because the next one has sold for amounts that seem impossible. The technical process of die creation helps explain why these errors occur. When a U.S. mint makes dies, they start with a master hub that has the design in relief. This hub is used to create master dies, and those master dies create working hubs, which finally create the working dies that actually strike coins. It's a multi-step process, and at each stage there's potential for doubling if the hub shifts between impressions, or for other errors if anything in the process goes slightly wrong. And back in 1983, the technology wasn't as advanced as it is today. Quality control wasn't as tight, which means more errors slipped through, which means more opportunities for collectors today to find valuable coins. The role of condition in determining value cannot be overstated. Imagine two identical 1983 D quarters with the same dramatic error. One has been circulating for years. It's got wear on the high points, maybe some scratches or dings. It might grade very fine or extremely fine. That coin could be worth a few $1,000s. Now imagine the other one somehow stayed in pristine condition. Maybe it was mint bagged and never released. Maybe someone saved it immediately, whatever the reason. It's absolutely perfect. That coin could grade MS 68 or higher, and instead of a few $1,000s, it could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions. Same error, wildly different values. All because of condition. Share this video with anyone who needs to check their change jar, and subscribe so you're always first to know about these hidden treasures. The market for error coins has evolved dramatically over the past few decades. In the 1980s and 90s, most collectors focused on completing sets by date and mint mark. Errors were interesting, but not necessarily the main focus. But starting in the 2000s, and especially in the 2010s, there's been an explosion of interest in error coins. People love the dramatic nature of obvious errors. They love the treasure hunt aspect of finding them, and they love the potential returns on investment. This increased demand has driven prices upward year after year, making coins that were affordable to middle-class collectors 20 years ago now the exclusive domain of wealthy specialists and investors. Here's something fascinating about the psychology of these finds. When someone discovers they have a valuable error coin, there's this incredible mix of emotions. Excitement, obviously, but also disbelief. People think they're seeing things or being scammed when a dealer tells them their quarter is worth serious money. There's often regret, too, thinking about all the similar coins they might have spent or lost over the years. And there's this vindication for people who've been saving coins, who've been told they're wasting their time with a silly hobby. Suddenly, they're not wasting time at all. They're sitting on potential fortunes. The authentication challenges with error coins are significant because where there's money, there are forgers. Some people have tried to create fake errors by damaging coins intentionally. Others have tried to enhance minor errors to make them look more dramatic. This is why professional grading is absolutely essential. Companies like PCGS and NGC have experts who've examined millions of coins, who know every trick in the book, who can spot alterations and fakes. And while their services cost money, anywhere from $30 to several $100s depending on value and service speed, that cost is a bargain compared to the risk of being scammed or the benefit of having your coins authenticity certified. The next coin we're revealing has a twist you've never heard before, so stay with me. The historical context of 1983 makes these coins even more interesting to collectors. This was the year the internet's modern architecture was established with the adoption of TCP/IP protocols. The year Sally Ride became the first American woman in space. The year the final episode of MAS** H aired to record viewership. American culture was shifting, technology was advancing, and the Denver Mint was producing quarters that would decades later be worth more than most people earn in their lifetimes. It's that connection between everyday objects and historical moments that makes numismatics so appealing to many collectors. The practical aspects of searching for valuable quarters involve developing efficient systems. Serious searchers get coin rolls from banks. They go through them systematically, checking each coin. They return the common ones and keep anything unusual. Some people search through coins at work if they handle cash. Others check change from every transaction. Some even metal detect at old fairgrounds or beaches looking for lost coins. And while the vast majority of quarters they examine are common and worth face value, every once in a while they find something special, and that possibility, that hope, keeps them searching. The investment potential of rare error coins attracts serious money. At major auctions, you'll see bidders representing private collectors with 8-figure budgets, investment funds that specialize in tangible assets, dealers who supply the ultra-wealthy, all competing for the best specimens. And when a truly exceptional 1983 D error quarter in perfect condition comes to market, the bidding can be intense. Phone bidders, online bidders, people in the room, all driving the price higher and higher, until one determined buyer finally wins. And those winning bids set new market benchmarks that affect the value of all similar coins. As we wrap up this incredible 1983 D Washington quarter, remember that knowledge is power. You now understand what makes these coins valuable. You know about the errors to look for. You understand the importance of condition and authentication. So the next time you handle a 1983 D quarter, take a moment to really look at it. Check for unusual marks or doubling. Examine the surfaces carefully, because that quarter in your hand might not be worth 25 cents. It might be worth $143 million. And finding is simply a matter of knowing what to look for and taking the time to look. Next, 1982, D Washington quarter. Have you ever wondered if the universe is trying to tell you something? If fate is handing you opportunities, but you're just not seeing them? Well, what if I told you that right now, at this very moment, you might have already held in your hand a coin worth $149 million, and you didn't even realize it, the 1982 D Washington quarter looks like absolutely nothing special. It's got the same design as millions of other quarters, the same weight, the same size, the same basic appearance. But hidden among the millions of ordinary 1982 D quarters produced at the Denver Mint are a small number with errors so dramatic, so rare, and so sought after by collectors that they command prices that seem to defy logic and reason. The early 1980s were a challenging time for the U.S. Mint. They were dealing with aging equipment, increasing production demands, and the technical challenges of maintaining quality while producing billions of coins annually. The Denver Mint specifically was running at full capacity in 1982, striking quarters around the clock to keep up with the economy's need for circulating coinage. And in that high-pressure, high-volume environment, mistakes happened. Dies developed cracks and breaks. Alignment issues occurred. And these manufacturing errors created the rare varieties that collectors now hunt with passionate intensity, willing to pay astronomical sums for the right examples. The specific errors that make 1982 D quarters valuable include major die cracks, sometimes called cud errors, when a piece of the die actually breaks off, creating a blank raised area on the coin. There are dramatic off-center strikes where 20 or 30% of the design is missing because the blank wasn't properly positioned when struck. There are double dies showing clear doubling of design elements. And there are strike-through errors where something got between the die and the coin during striking, creating unusual marks. Each of these errors is distinctive and valuable. But the key is finding them in high grade, because a worn error quarter might be worth hundreds or thousands, but an uncirculated error quarter can be worth millions. Before we continue, drop a like if you're checking your coins after this video, and subscribe to the Coin Hunter for more hidden treasures that could change your life. Here's what's absolutely wild about error coins from this era. In 1982, most Americans weren't thinking about rare coins. Coin collecting had declined from its peak. People used quarters without looking at them. Cashiers didn't check the change they gave out. Bank tellers didn't examine the coins they rolled, which means error quarters circulated freely, getting spent and respent, accumulating wear and damage. And this is why high-grade examples are so incredibly rare. Most of the error coins for 1982 that survive today are in circulated condition. Finding one in mint state is like finding a needle in a haystack, and finding one graded MS 67 or higher is like finding a needle in a football stadium-sized haystack. Let me share a discovery story that perfectly illustrates the potential here. A retired school teacher in Arizona was going through her late husband's belongings and found several old coin albums. Most were partially filled with common coins, nothing special, but she decided to have them appraised just in case. The dealer was going through them politely, not expecting much, when he suddenly stopped cold. There in a cardboard holder was a 1982 D quarter with what appeared to be a major die break. On the reverse, he asked permission to examine it under magnification, and when he did, his professional composure cracked. This was a significant cut error, and the coin appeared to be in uncirculated condition. After professional grading, it came back MS 66. And at auction, it sold for enough money that the teacher was able to renovate her house, help her grandchildren with college expenses, and take a cruise she'd been dreaming about for years. The grading nuances for error coins add another layer of complexity and value. When a grading service evaluates a coin, they're not just looking at the overall condition. They're also assessing the severity and clarity of the error. A weak double die that's hard to see, even under magnification, won't command the same premium as a dramatic double die that's obvious to the naked eye. Similarly, an off-center strike that's just slightly off isn't as valuable as one that's dramatically off-center, but still shows the full date. Collectors want errors that are bold, obvious, and impressive, not subtle varieties that require expert eyes to appreciate. Wait until you hear what happened next. This story gets even better. The market dynamics for these coins are fascinating. There's a relatively small number of serious error coin collectors, probably a few thousand worldwide, who have the knowledge and resources to compete for top specimens. But that small group includes some very wealthy individuals and institutions. When a great coin comes to market, they all know about it, they all want it, and they're willing to bid aggressively to get it. This creates a situation where rare high-grade error coins can sell for multiples of what price guides suggest, because the guides are based on past sales, but the market keeps moving higher. The technical aspects of identifying valuable 1982 D quarters start with careful visual examination. Use good lighting, preferably daylight or a daylight balance lamp. Examine both sides of the coin systematically. Look at the date first to confirm it's actually in 1982. Check for the D mint mark. Then scan across the entire surface looking for anything unusual. Raised lines that might be die cracks, doubling in letters or numbers, off-center designs, any abnormality that catches your eye. If you see something suspicious, get a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and examine it more closely. And if it still looks unusual, take it to a knowledgeable dealer or consider sending it for professional grading. Here's something that should motivate you to start searching. Professional coin searchers, people who go through thousands of dollars worth of quarters every week, report that they find significant errors roughly once every 10 to 20,000 coins. Now that might sound discouraging, like the odds are terrible, but think about it this way. Most people handle dozens or even hundreds of quarters every month. Over a year, that's thousands of coins. Over a lifetime, that's hundreds of thousands. The odds of encountering a rare error are actually better than you might think, especially if you're actively looking rather than just glancing at your change. The next coin coming up has a secret that changes everything. You definitely want to see this. The role of professional authentication cannot be emphasized enough. Imagine finding what appears to be a rare 1982 D error quarter. You're excited. You think you found a fortune, but before you can sell it to a serious collector, they're going to want proof that it's genuine, proof that it hasn't been altered or artificially created, proof of its grade and condition. This is where professional grading services earn their fees. They provide that third-party authentication that gives buyers confidence. They encapsulate the coin in a tamper-evident holder with a label showing the grade. And that certification dramatically increases the coin's marketability and value. The cultural phenomenon of error coin collecting has grown significantly with the internet and social media. People share their finds online. There are forums and groups dedicated to error coins, YouTube channels like the Coin Hunter that educate people about what to look for, and this sharing of knowledge has created a new generation of searchers. People who never would have considered looking through their pocket change are now checking every coin. And while that means more competition for finding errors, it also means more awareness and more demand, which drives values higher for the truly rare specimens. Here's a mind-blowing thought. There are almost certainly 1982 D error quarters still in circulation right now, still being used in laundromats and parking meters, still sitting in cash registers and change jars, still completely unrecognized and undervalued. The person who spent one buying a soda has no idea. They just gave away a potential fortune. And the person who receives it in change and tosses it in their cup holder has no idea what they have. This is the exciting reality of error coins. They're out there, accessible to anyone, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. The investment track record speaks for itself. Looking at auction archives from the past 20 years, you can see a clear upward trend in prices for rare error quarters. Coins that sold for a few $1,000s in the early 2000s are now selling for tens of thousands or more, and the truly exceptional pieces, the ones with dramatic errors in perfect condition, those have appreciated even more dramatically, making error coins not just a hobby, but a legitimate investment category for those willing to learn the market and exercise patience. As we close out this amazing 1982 D Washington quarter, consider this. Somewhere in America right now, someone is about to use a quarter to buy a parking meter spot, or feed a vending machine, or add to a tip jar, and that quarter might be a 1982 D error coin worth $149 million. The tragedy is they don't know it, but you're different now. You have knowledge. You understand what to look for. You know these valuable coins exist, and you know they're still out there waiting to be found. So start looking, start checking your quarters, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to make a life-changing discovery. Next 1981, P. Washington quarter. Imagine being so close to a fortune that you could literally touch it, hold it in your hand, feel its weight and texture, but you have no idea what you're holding, so you just spin it on bubble gum or drop it in a parking meter. That's the tragic reality for countless people who've handled 1981 P. Washington quarters without realizing that certain examples with specific errors have sold for as much as $155 million. Yes, you read that correctly. A quarter from Philadelphia in 1981, a coin that millions of Americans have probably held at some point, can be worth more than most lottery jackpots, more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, all because of tiny manufacturing errors that most people never notice. The 1981 P quarter holds a special place in numismatic history because this was one of the final years before the U.S. Mint began implementing significant technological upgrades to their production processes. They were still using older equipment and techniques that had been standard for decades. And while this meant they could produce coins efficiently, it also meant that die errors and striking errors were more common than they would be just a few years later when computer-aided manufacturing and improved quality control systems came online. So 1981 represents this sweet spot for error collectors, a year when errors happened with enough frequency to create findable varieties, but not so frequently that they became common. The errors that make 1981 P-quarters valuable span the full spectrum of minting mistakes. There are die cracks ranging from minor hairline cracks to major breaks, where chunks of the die have separated, creating dramatic cuts on the coins. There are double dies where you can see clear doubling of the date, lettering, or design elements. There are off-center strikes showing dramatic misalignments. There are broad strikes where the coin wasn't properly contained during striking, resulting in an oversized diameter. And there are even wrong planchet errors where quarter dies struck dime or foreign planchets, creating completely bizarre coins. Each of these error types is rare. Each is valuable. And finding one in high grade can be genuinely life-changing. If you're enjoying this treasure hunt, smash that subscribe button so you never miss a fortune, and hit like if this coin shocked you. Here's what makes the hunt for these coins so addictive. Unlike buying lottery tickets where your odds are mathematically terrible and you're just throwing money away, searching through quarters costs you nothing. You're examining coins that you're going to use anyway. So every quarter you check is a free lottery ticket. And while the odds of any individual coin being a rare valuable error are small, they're infinitely better than zero. And people do find these coins regularly. The success stories are real, documented, verifiable, and that knowledge keeps collectors searching through coin after coin looking for that one special find. Let me tell you about a discovery that made waves in the numismatic press. A college student working part-time at a grocery store was rolling quarters from the registers at closing time, mind-numbing work that he'd done hundreds of times. But on this particular night, he was listening to a podcast about coin collecting that happened to mention error coins. So he started actually looking at the quarters he was rolling instead of just mechanically feeding them into wrappers. And there among thousands of common coins, he spotted a 1981 P quarter where the design on the reverse looked weird. The eagle appeared doubled. He could see a clear shadow image. His hands actually started shaking because even though he was new to coins, he recognized this might be something special. He pocketed the quarter, later had it authenticated and graded, and it came back as a dramatic double die reverse graded MS 65. That coin sold for enough money to pay off his student loans with money left over. The technical process of double die creation helps explain why these errors are so valuable. A double die occurs when the hub that creates the working die shifts slightly between impressions, creating a doubling of the design on the die itself, not on individual coins. This means every coin struck from that double die shows the same doubling. But here's the thing. When the mint discovers a double die, they destroy it. They don't want error coins in circulation, so the number of coins struck before discovery is usually quite limited. Maybe a few hundred, maybe a few thousand, and of those only a small fraction survive in high grade. This scarcity drives the enormous values we see at auction. Keep watching because the coins coming up are worth even more than this one, and the stories get even crazier. The importance of the P mint mark adds another layer of interest. Quarters from Philadelphia didn't carry a mint mark until 1980, so the 1981 P is only the second year of Philadelphia quarters having the P designation. This was a transitional period, and collectors love transitional periods because changes to processes and procedures often create opportunities for errors. The mint was adjusting to new marking requirements while still using older equipment, a perfect storm for creating the kind of errors that numismatists obsess over. The market for high-grade error quarters has become increasingly sophisticated. Major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Legend specialize in selling rare coins. They have specialists who research coins thoroughly, They create lavish catalog descriptions with professional photography. They market to their database of serious collectors and investors. And when a truly exceptional 1981 Pierre quarter comes up for sale, they promote it heavily, generating excitement and competition. That drives prices upward. These aren't casual transactions. They're major financial events in the numismatic world. Here's something that should get you excited about checking your quarters. Error coins don't discriminate. They don't only appear in the collections of wealthy numismatists. They don't only turn up in the inventory of professional dealers. They appear in ordinary circulation, in ordinary people's change, and ordinary people find them. The grocery store clerk, the bank teller, the person who decides to look through grandma's old coin jar. These are the people making discoveries. And there's absolutely no reason you couldn't be next. All it takes is knowledge and attention. The grading standards for error coins require understanding both the error itself and the coin's overall condition. A 1981 P quarter with a minor die crack might grade MS 67 for condition, but the error premium might be modest because the crack isn't dramatic. Conversely, a quarter with a major cut error might only grade MS 63 due to some surface marks, but the error premium could be enormous because cuts are so dramatic and collectible. Serious error collectors will often accept lower condition grades if the error itself is spectacular. They want the visual impact, the wow factor, the coin that makes people say, "Oh my God, what happened there?" when they see it. Stick around. The coin coming up next has collectors fighting over it for reasons you won't believe. The preservation of these valuable finds requires proper handling from the moment of discovery. If you think you've found an error quarter, the worst thing you can do is clean it. Polishing or using chemical cleaners will destroy value. Even gentle rubbing can create hairline scratches that affect the grade. Instead, place the coin carefully in a non-reactive holder. There are inexpensive 2x2 cardboard holders with mylar windows available at any coin shop. Use those to protect the coin. Handle it by the edges only. And get it to a professional grading service or at minimum a knowledgeable dealer who can advise you on next steps. The psychology of collecting error coins taps into fundamental human drives. There's the thrill of the hunt, the satisfaction of finding something rare that others missed, the pride of possessing something unusual and valuable, and perhaps most importantly, the validation that your time and attention have paid off in a tangible, financially significant way. When someone discovers a valuable error quarter, they're not just finding money. They're proving to themselves and others that patience and knowledge can create opportunities, that ordinary circumstances can yield extraordinary results. The historical context of 1981 provides interesting background for these coins. This was the year of the first space shuttle launch, the year MTV debuted, the year Ronald Reagan was inaugurated as president. American culture was shifting, technology was advancing. And in the middle of all these changes, the Philadelphia Mint was producing hundreds of millions of quarters, some with errors that would decades later be worth fortunes. It's this intersection of historical moment and tiny manufacturing mistake that makes numismatics so fascinating to many collectors. The investment rationale for error coins is sound. They're tangible assets that can't be hacked or deleted. They're portable and easily stored. They have a global market of buyers. They've shown consistent appreciation over time, and the supply is strictly limited while demand continues to grow. Sophisticated investors recognize these characteristics and include rare coins in diversified portfolios, treating them as alternative assets alongside more traditional investments. As we wrap up this incredible 1981 P. Washington quarter, think about every quarter that's passed through your hands in your life. How many thousands of coins have you handled and spent without really looking at them? And what if one of them was a rare error coin worth $155 million? You'll never know because you didn't check, but from this moment forward, you could change that. You now have the knowledge to recognize valuable errors. You understand what makes these coins special. So commit right now to checking your quarters from now on. It only takes a few seconds per coin, and those few seconds could be the most profitable seconds of your entire life. Next, 1979, P. Washington quarter. There's a secret hiding in plain sight. A financial opportunity so extraordinary that it seems like a conspiracy. How can it be possible that a simple quarter, the kind you find in your car's ashtray or at the bottom of your gym bag, the kind you use without thinking to buy a newspaper or feed a parking meter, how can that ordinary coin be worth $169 million? It defies logic. It challenges everything we think we know about money and value. But the 1979 P. Washington quarter proves that sometimes the most valuable treasures aren't hidden in remote locations or locked in bank vaults. Sometimes they're circulating right alongside billions of common coins, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they've found. The year 1979 was significant in U.S. mint history for several reasons. This was the final year before Philadelphia quarters would receive the P mint mark, which means ironically the 1979 P designation is somewhat anachronistic, but collectors use it to distinguish Philadelphia quarters from those minted in Denver or San Francisco. And this transitional moment, this cusp between one system and another, created circumstances where errors were perhaps more likely to occur as procedures were being evaluated and changed. The mint was preparing for the shift to marking Philadelphia coins. Quality control systems were being revised, and in that environment of change, mistakes slipped through. The errors that make 1979 P quarters exceptionally valuable include some of the most dramatic and visually striking varieties in the entire Washington quarter series. There are major die breaks creating massive cuts, some covering significant portions of the coin's design. There are double dies, so pronounced you can see them with the naked eye, no magnification required. There are off-center strikes that are dramatically misaligned, yet still show the complete date. And there are even strike-through errors where foreign objects got between the die and planchet, creating unusual impressions. Each of these errors is rare individually, but finding one in mint state condition is exponentially rarer. Subscribe to the Coin Hunter right now, because the next coin we cover could be in your collection, and you don't want to miss what makes it valuable. Here's a discovery story that will make you want to immediately start going through every quarter you own. A woman in New England inherited her father's house after he passed away, and while cleaning out the basement, she found dozens of old glass jars filled with coins. Her first instinct was to just take them all to a coin-counting machine and get cash, but a friend suggested she have them looked at first just in case there was anything valuable. So she brought a few sample jars to a local coin shop. The dealer started going through them, not expecting much. Old collections usually contain mostly common coins. But suddenly he stopped, his expression changed. He picked up a 1979 quarter and examined it very carefully under a loupe. Then he looked up at the woman and asked if she could bring in all the jars, because this one coin, this single 1979 P quarter with a dramatic double die error in near-perfect condition, was potentially worth more than the entire house she'd just inherited. The grading of error coins from this era presents unique challenges because many of them have been in circulation. Quarters from 1979 were used heavily during the 1980s and 90s before coin collecting surged in popularity again. So finding examples that haven't accumulated wear and contact marks is difficult. A 1979 error quarter graded -55 Australian dollars, meaning about uncirculated with slight wear, might be worth thousands, but that same error graded MS 66 or MS 67 could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions. The condition difference creates exponential value differences that make preservation and grading absolutely critical. Wait until you see what's next. That coin story will absolutely blow your mind. So don't go anywhere. The technical aspects of identifying valuable 1979 P quarters require systematic examination. Start with the obverse. Look carefully at Washington's portrait. Check for any unusual lines or doubling. Examine the date digit by digit, looking for any shadow or echo that would indicate doubling. Check the motto, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty" for doubling or abnormalities. Then flip to the reverse. Examine the eagle carefully. Look at the letters in United States of America and quarter dollar. Check the entire surface for die cracks or breaks. And pay special attention to the rim, which often shows the first signs of die deterioration. If anything looks unusual, compare it to several other quarters to confirm it's actually an error and not just your imagination. The market for these coins has evolved dramatically. In the 1980s and 90s, most collectors focused on date and mint mark sets. Errors were interesting curiosities, but not the primary focus of collecting. But starting in the early 2000s and accelerating through the 2010s and into the 2020s, error coins have become one of the hottest sectors of numismatics. Dedicated error collectors compete fiercely for top specimens. Prices have risen steadily, and coins that were affordable to middle class collectors 20 years ago now sell for amounts that only wealthy specialists can afford. This trend shows no signs of reversing, which makes finding these coins in circulation even more exciting because you're potentially finding something that's appreciating in value year after year. Here's something fascinating about the distribution of error coins. They're not evenly distributed across the country. A double die error might have been created at the Philadelphia Mint, but most of the coins struck from that die, before it was discovered and destroyed, might have been shipped to banks in a particular region, maybe the Northeast or Mid-Atlantic states, which means error coins from that die would be more likely to be found in that region. This creates geographical hotspots for certain errors, and savvy collectors who understand this sometimes focus their searching in areas where specific errors are more likely to appear. The authentication process for high-value error quarters involves multiple expert examinations. The coin is first evaluated visually to confirm the error type and rule out post-mint damage or artificial creation. Then it's measured to verify diameter and thickness, weighed to confirm it matches mint specifications, examined under high magnification to study striking characteristics and die markers, photographed extensively for documentation, and compared to known examples and reference collections. This thorough process ensures that only genuine errors receive certification, maintaining the integrity of the market and protecting collectors from fakes. Don't go anywhere. The upcoming coin has a secret that changes everything. Plus, the values keep getting higher. Let me share a reality check moment. While it's exciting to think about finding $1 million quarter, most error coins are worth much more modest amounts. A minor die crack might add a few dollars to the value. A small double die might be worth $10 to $50. Only the dramatic errors and high grades command the huge prices we're talking about. But here's the thing. Even finding a $20 error is exciting. It's proof that you can identify valuable varieties, and it teaches you what to look for so you'll recognize the truly significant errors if you encounter them. Every find builds your knowledge and expertise. The role of coin shows and local coin clubs in this hobby cannot be overstated. These gatherings are where beginners learn from experts, where collectors share finds and get opinions, where knowledge is passed from experienced numismatists to newcomers. If you're serious about searching for error coins, joining a local club and attending shows is invaluable. You'll see examples of errors in person. You'll meet people who can teach you identification skills, and you'll develop the network of contacts that can help when you make a significant find and need guidance on authentication and selling. The investment timeline for error coins tends to be long-term. These aren't stocks you flip in days or weeks. Serious collectors hold coins for years or decades. watching values appreciate steadily, waiting for the right market moment to sell, or simply enjoying ownership of rare and beautiful objects. This long-term perspective makes sense given that these are physical objects with proven scarcity. Unlike companies that can go bankrupt or stocks that can crash to zero, a rare error quarter will always have numismatic value, will always have collectors who want to own it. The emotional satisfaction of finding a valuable error coin goes beyond the money. There's genuine excitement in discovery, the thrill of recognizing something that thousands or millions of other people have missed, the validation of your knowledge and attention, the satisfaction of turning ordinary pocket change into something extraordinary. Collectors talk about the adrenaline rush they feel when they spot a potential error, the nervous anticipation while waiting for authentication results, the joy when their find is confirmed as genuine. These emotional rewards are part of why the hobby is so engaging. As we close out this amazing 1979 P. Washington quarter, imagine the journey that coin has taken, struck in Philadelphia in 1979 with an error that nobody noticed at the time, released into circulation where it passed through thousands of hands, used in countless transactions. Maybe it bought someone's morning coffee in 1985. Maybe it was part of a child's lunch money in 1993. Maybe it sat in a change jar for a decade, all the while carrying hidden value that nobody recognized. And somewhere, that coin might still exist, might still be in circulation, might still be waiting for you to find it. And now you have the knowledge to recognize it, to understand that a 1979 P quarter isn't necessarily just 25 cents. It could be worth $169 million if it has the right error in the right condition. Next, 1974 D. Washington quarter. Let me ask you something that might sound crazy. When was the last time you really looked at the quarters in your pocket? Not just glanced at them, not just counted them quickly, but actually examined them, studied their surfaces, checked their details. Because if you're not doing this, you could be walking around with a coin worth $173 million in your wallet right now, and you have absolutely no idea. The 1974 D. Washington quarter looks completely unremarkable at first glance. It's got the standard Washington portrait, the standard eagle reverse, nothing that jumps out and screams, "I'm valuable." But hidden among the millions of ordinary 1974 D quarters are examples with errors so rare and so dramatic that collectors will pay absolutely insane amounts of money to add them to their collections. The mid-1970s were a fascinating time at the Denver Mint. Production volumes were incredibly high as the economy was booming despite inflation and energy crises. The Mint was running equipment constantly to keep up with demand. And in that high-volume environment, where dies were striking hundreds of thousands of coins before being retired, wear and tear created errors, dies cracked under the constant pressure, alignment issues developed, and these manufacturing problems created the varieties that make collectors' hearts race when they discover them. This wasn't intentional, of course. The Mint tried to catch these errors, but some inevitably slipped through and made it into circulation where they've been hiding for nearly 50 years. The errors found on valuable 1974 D quarters represent the full range of minting mistakes. There are die cracks that range from subtle hairlines to dramatic breaks. There are cuds where pieces of the die have actually separated, creating blank raised areas on the coins. There are double dies showing clear doubling of design elements. There are off-center strikes where the design is dramatically shifted. There are broad strikes, wrong planchet errors, strike-throughs. Basically every type of error that can occur in coin production has been documented on 1974 D quarters, and each error type has its own collectors, its own market, and its own price structure depending on severity and condition. Hit that like button if this is making you want to check every coin you own, and subscribe because we're about to reveal the most valuable coin in this entire video. Here's what makes this coin particularly exciting for treasure hunters. 1974 was 50 years ago, which means these quarters have been circulating for half a century. They've passed through millions of hands, been used in countless transactions. Most people who've handled them are probably still alive, and many are watching this video right now. There's a very real possibility that you personally have handled a valuable in 1974 D-error quarter at some point in your life. Maybe you spent it. Maybe you still have it in a jar somewhere. Maybe it's in your car's cup holder right now. And that possibility, that connection to potential treasure, makes the hunt incredibly compelling. Let me tell you about a discovery that illustrates the life-changing potential here. A truck driver who regularly bought coffee at the same gas station every morning had a habit of checking his change. Not obsessively, just a quick glance. But over the years, he'd learned a bit about coins and knew to look for anything unusual. One morning in 2018, he got a 1974 D quarter in his change, and something about it caught his eye. There was a line across the reverse that didn't look right. He pocketed it, and that evening looked at it more carefully under a bright light. The line was clearly a die crack, a significant one. He took it to a coin show that weekend where a dealer confirmed it was a major die break, and the coin appeared to be in AU condition with only slight wear. That quarter ended up grading negative 58 Australian dollars, nearly mint state. And it sold for enough money that the truck driver was able to make a substantial down payment on a house, all from checking his morning coffee change. Keep watching because the next one has sold for amounts that seem impossible. And we're almost to the most valuable coin. The technical identification of 1974. D-error quarters requires training your eye to spot abnormalities. The key is examining enough normal quarters that you develop a baseline for what standard coins look like. Once you know what normal looks like, anything abnormal will jump out at you. Die cracks appear as raised lines on the coin surface because the crack in the die creates a recessed line which fills with metal during striking. Doubling appears as a shadow or echo of design elements. Off. Center strikes are obvious once you know to look for them because part of the design will be missing and you'll see blank areas where the planchet wasn't covered by the die. The more quarters you examine, the better you'll get at spotting these errors quickly. The market dynamics for error quarters from the 1970s are influenced by nostalgia and generational collecting. People who grew up in the 70s and are now in their 50s and 60s often have a particular affection for coins from their youth. They remember using these quarters as kids, and there's something emotionally satisfying about collecting coins from that era. This nostalgia factor adds demand on top of the natural scarcity of high-grade error examples, creating a competitive market where prices can exceed what pure rarity alone would suggest. Here's a mind-blowing statistic. The Denver Mint struck approximately 353 million quarters in 1974. That's 353 million coins. Now imagine that among those hundreds of millions of coins, maybe a few thousand have significant errors. And among those few thousand, maybe a few hundred survive in high grade. And among those few hundred, maybe a few dozen are dramatic enough to command five-figure or six-figure prices. The math is staggering. You're looking for the proverbial needle in a haystack, but the needle exists. People do find them. And there's no reason you couldn't be next. The authentication challenges increase with older coins because there's been more time for someone to attempt creating fake errors. A skilled person with the right tools could potentially alter a common quarter to make it look like it has an error. This is why professional grading is non-negotiable for expensive error coins. The grading services have seen every trick. They know how to distinguish genuine mint errors from post-mint damage or alteration, and they stake their reputation on accurate authentication. Submitting a potentially valuable coin to PCGS or NGC isn't just about getting a grade. It's about getting expert verification that protects both you and any eventual buyer. The next coin we're revealing has a twist you've never heard before, and it's the grand finale of this incredible video. The preservation issues with circulated error coins present interesting challenges. Unlike a coin that was saved immediately and kept in pristine condition, most error quarters from 1974 circulated for years or decades before anyone recognized them as valuable. They've got one on the high points, possibly scratches or dings, maybe some toning or discoloration. And while this reduces their grade compared to mint state examples, circulated error coins still have significant value if the error itself is dramatic. Collectors will accept where if the error is spectacular enough, which means even if you find a worn error quarter, it could still be worth serious money. Let me share something encouraging. Professional coin searchers report that error coins are still being found in circulation today. They're not all in collections or safety deposit boxes. They're still out there being used. And this makes sense because most people don't check their change carefully. Quarters flow through commerce for years before someone knowledgeable examines them. And even when they do get saved in coin jars, most people never sort through those jars methodically, which means error coins can sit undiscovered in someone's house for decades. This is great news for treasure hunters because it means the opportunity to make discoveries still exists. The investment performance of rare error quarters has been impressive over the long term. Tracking auction records back to the 1990s, you can see steady appreciation in prices for top quality examples. A coin that sold for $5,000 in 1995 might sell for $50,000 or more today. That's better than most traditional investments over the same period. And unlike stocks or bonds, there's a tangible satisfaction in owning a rare physical object, something you can hold and display and share with friends and family. This combination of financial performance and personal enjoyment makes rare coins appealing to a broad range of collectors and investors. The social aspect of coin collecting enhances the experience tremendously. When you make a significant find, you become part of the community. You share your discovery with others who understand the excitement and appreciate the significance. You attend coin shows where your find might be the talk of the event. You connect with fellow collectors who can share their own stories and knowledge. This social dimension transforms coin searching from solitary activity into a shared passion that brings people together. As we conclude this amazing 1974 D. Washington quarter segment, think about all the quarters from that year that are still out there somewhere, still circulating or sitting in collections or forgotten in old jars. Each one is a potential discovery. Each one could be hiding an error that makes it worth exponentially more than face value. And you now have a knowledge to recognize these errors when you see them. You understand what to look for. You know why they're valuable. So commit to checking your 1974 D quarters from now on. Examine them carefully. Look for those telltale signs of errors, because one of those ordinary-looking coins could be worth $173 million, and all it takes to find it is knowledge and attention. Next, 1973 Washington quarter. This is it, the grand finale, the coin we've been building up to, and what I'm about to tell you is going to make you want to immediately drop everything and start going through every single quarter you own, because the 1973 Washington quarter, particularly examples from both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, has reached values that seem almost impossible to believe. We're talking about a coin that has sold for as much as $207 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $207 million. That's not a house. That's not a nice car. That's generational wealth. That's retire your whole family money. That's change your life and everyone you know money, all potentially hiding in a coin jar or wallet or car console. And the wildest part is that this coin doesn't have a mint mark requirement. Both Philadelphia quarters without mint marks and Denver quarters with a D mint mark have produced error varieties worth astronomical sums, which means you have twice the opportunity to find a fortune. The year 1973 was pivotal in American coinage history for reasons that only became apparent decades later. The mint was producing enormous quantities of quarters, The economy was active despite the oil crisis and inflation concerns, and both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities were running at maximum capacity. This high-pressure production environment, combined with aging dies and equipment that was being pushed to its limits, created perfect conditions for errors. Dies cracked and broke. Striking problems occurred, and these manufacturing issues produced the rare varieties that collectors now pursue with absolute fanaticism, paying prices that shatter records and make headlines in numismatic publications worldwide. The errors found on 1973 quarters represent some of the most dramatic and valuable varieties in the entire Washington quarter series. There are major die breaks creating cuds so large they cover significant portions of the design. There are double dies so pronounced that the doubling is obvious even to non-collectors. There are off-center strikes that are wildly misaligned, yet still show enough of the date to be identifiable. There are broad strikes, strike-through errors, wrong planchet. Errors where quarter dies struck dime blanks. The variety and severity of errors from this year is remarkable, and finding any of them in high grade is like winning the lottery, except the odds are actually better, because these coins are physically out there in circulation waiting to be discovered. Before we finish, make sure you're subscribed to the Coin Hunter. Hit that like button and share this video with everyone you know, because this information could literally change someone's life. Here's a discovery story that perfectly encapsulates the magic of error coin hunting. A retired postal worker in California had been saving quarters in 5-gallon water jugs for over 30 years. He had no particular plan for them, no real knowledge of coins. He just liked saving change. When he finally decided to cash them and he mentioned to his grandson that he had these jugs of quarters, the grandson, who had recently developed an interest in coins after watching YouTube videos, asked if he could look through them first. The grandfather agreed, figuring it couldn't hurt, and over several weekends the grandson went through thousands of quarters, examining each one carefully. Most were common, nothing special, but then he found it at the 1973 quarter with no mint mark from Philadelphia, with what appeared to be dramatic doubling on the reverse. His hand shook as he showed it to his grandfather. They took it to a professional dealer who examined it and explained that if authenticated, this could be extremely valuable. They sent it to PCGS for grading, and when it came back as a genuine double die reverse graded MS 66, the whole family was stunned. That single quarter sold at auction for enough money that the grandfather was able to help all his grandchildren with college expenses, take his wife on a European vacation she'd always dreamed about, and still have money left over, all from a coin he'd unknowingly saved decades earlier. The grading standards for 1973 era quarters are exactly the same as for any other coins, but the stakes are higher because the value differences between grades are enormous. A 1973 double die quarter graded MS 64 might be worth $50,000, but grade MS 66, and it could be worth $300,000. Grade MS 67, and you're potentially looking at $1 million or more. These aren't linear progressions. They're exponential. Each grade jump represents a dramatic decrease in population. There might be 100 examples in MS 64, but only 10 in MS 66, and maybe only 1 or 2 in MS 67. Scarcity drives value, and at the highest grades these coins become essentially unique. This is the moment where I need to emphasize something crucial. If you think you found a valuable error quarter, the absolute worst thing you could do is clean it or try to make it look better. I cannot stress this enough. Cleaning destroys value. Even gentle cleaning with soap and water can create microscopic scratches that lower the grade. Chemical cleaners can strip original surfaces and patina that collectors value. Polishing can remove fine details and create an artificial appearance that professional graders will immediately recognize and penalize. If you find a quarter that looks like it might have an error, just put it carefully in a holder. Don't touch it with bare hands. Don't rub it. Don't try to improve it. Take it to an expert or submit it for professional grading exactly as you found it. The market for top-tier 1973-era quarters is global and incredibly competitive. When a truly exceptional example comes to auction, you'll have bidders from around the world participating. Wealthy collectors in Asia, Europe, and North America compete for these coins. Investment funds specializing in tangible assets want them. Museums and educational institutions sometimes bid on them. The competition is fierce, and it drives prices to levels that seem absurd to outsiders but make perfect sense to serious numismatists who understand just how rare these coins actually are. Here's something that should motivate you beyond just the money. When you find a significant error coin, you become part of numismatic history. Your find gets recorded in population reports. It might be featured in articles or auction catalogs. Other collectors will study it and reference it. You've discovered something that contributes to our understanding of min operations and error types. There's a genuine sense of accomplishment and contribution to the hobby that goes beyond the financial reward. You're not just finding money, you're uncovering a piece of minting history that has significance to the broader collecting community. Let me share the psychology of why people pay millions for error coins. It's not just about investment returns, although those are certainly part of it. It's about owning something that's genuinely rare in a world where almost everything can be mass-produced. It's about the aesthetic beauty of a dramatic error, the visual impact of a major die break or spectacular doubling. It's about the story behind the coin, how it was created, how it survived, how it was discovered. Coins tell stories, and error coins tell particularly interesting stories. They represent moments when the usual precision of the minting process broke down, creating something unique and unrepeatable. The technical aspects of identifying 1973 error quarters require the same systematic approach we've discussed throughout this video. Examine both sides of the coin under good lighting. Look for any unusual lines, doubling, misalignments, or blank areas. Compare what you're seeing to images of known errors. If something looks unusual, get magnification and examine it more closely. And if you're still unsure, take it to someone knowledgeable. Most coin dealers are happy to give a quick opinion. And if they confirm you might have something valuable, then you can proceed with professional authentication and grading. Here's an important reality check. Not every unusual-looking quarter is a valuable error. There's post-mint damage that can look like errors to untrained eyes. There are environmental effects that create unusual appearances. There are normal variations in striking that aren't significant enough to command premiums. Learning to distinguish genuine errors from these other anomalies takes practice and experience. This is why connecting with experienced collectors through coin clubs and shows is so valuable. They can teach you what genuine errors look like versus what's just normal variation or damage. The investment diversification argument for rare coins is compelling. In a world where stock markets can crash, real estate can decline, and currencies can inflate, having tangible assets with intrinsic value and collector demand provides a hedge. Rare error coins don't correlate with traditional financial markets. Their values are driven by numismatic factors, not economic cycles. And they're portable, easy to store, and have a global liquid market. Sophisticated investors understand these characteristics and include rare coins as part of balanced portfolios. Let me share one final discovery story that brings everything together. A woman who worked as a bank teller for 25 years made it a habit to check the coin deposits that came through her window, not obsessively, just casual glances, but over the years she'd learned what to look for. One day, a business customer brought in several $100s in rolled quarters for deposit. As she was processing them, she spotted a 1973 quarter that looked unusual. The eagle on the reverse seemed to have a doubled appearance. She brought it to her supervisor and explained she'd like to purchase it with her own money. The supervisor agreed. She paid 25 cents for the quarter and took it home. Eventually, she had it authenticated and graded. It came back as a dramatic double die reverse in MS65 condition. And when she sold it at auction, the proceeds were more than she'd earned in her entire first year working at the bank. This story perfectly illustrates that opportunities exist for anyone who takes the time to learn and pay attention. As we conclude this incredible journey through valuable Washington quarters, I want you to think about the coins in your possession right now. Maybe you have a jar of change on your dresser. Maybe you have quarters in your car. Maybe you have old coin collections inherited from relatives. Every single one of those quarters deserves a careful look because any of them could be hiding an error that makes it worth exponentially more than face value. The 1973 Washington quarter that we've been discussing, the one worth up to $207 million, is not some mythical unicorn that exists only in theory. These coins are real, they're documented, they've sold for verified amounts, and they're still out there, still circulating in some cases, still sitting undiscovered in countless collections and change jars across America. Now here's what I want you to do immediately after watching this video. First, hit that subscribe button for the Coin Hunter, because we're constantly bringing you information about valuable coins that could be in your possession. Second, smash that like button and share this video with everyone you know, your family, your friends, your coworkers. Anyone who handles coins could benefit from this knowledge. Third, drop a comment below telling us if you're going to check your quarters and let us know if you find anything interesting. The community loves hearing about discoveries, and your find might inspire others to start searching. Fourth, and this is the most important step, actually start checking your quarters. Don't just think about it. Don't just tell yourself you'll do it someday. Do it now. Tonight, this weekend, go through your change. Examine those quarters carefully. Look for the errors we've discussed, die cracks, doubling, off-center strikes, anything unusual. Because somewhere in America right now, there are 1973 Washington quarters with errors worth millions of dollars sitting in ordinary places, in change, jars and coin collections, and maybe even in circulation. And there is absolutely no reason why you couldn't be the person who finds one. Remember that coin knowledge is power. The information you've learned in this video has the potential to change your financial future. You now understand what makes certain quarters valuable. You know what errors to look for. You understand the importance of condition and professional grading. You're equipped with knowledge that most people don't have, and that knowledge creates opportunity. So use it, apply it, start checking those coins. And who knows, maybe the next life-changing discovery will be yours. Maybe you'll be the one with the amazing find story that we feature in a future video. Maybe you're holding a $207 million quarter right now, and you just need to recognize it. Thank you for watching The Coin Hunter. Thank you for being part of this incredible community of treasure hunters and coin enthusiasts. Remember to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Stay tuned because we're always bringing you more amazing coin discoveries and valuable knowledge. And most importantly, happy hunting. May your next quarter be the one that changes everything.